Hey, welcome back for some more X-Files. Well, I've hit 1,000 subscribers, so I think you know what that means. That's right, today's video is sponsored by Nord Shadow. Alright, actually, today we're going to be looking at F Emasculata, episode 22 of season 2. Debuting on April 28th, 1995 on the Fox network, F Emasculata pits our agents against a deadly pathogen. Will they be able to stop it before it can spread? Well, let's find out. In the rainforests of Costa Rica, Dr. Robert Torrance is collecting insects for Pink Pharmaceuticals' biodiversity project. But is it just me, or do these worms look like the ones from the episode Ice?
Get away! Shoot!
The doctor finds what looks to be some kind of wild boar that looks pretty damn nasty. Now, I'm not a scientist or anything, but I don't think I'd be going within 100 meters of something with pulsating sores like this. The doc, however, has to get in for a closer look. Let's see if he'll regret that decision. How do you even come back from something like that? There isn't enough toothpaste in the world or a hot enough shower that's going to take that off. Despite eating whatever just sprayed him, the doctor isn't leaving without a sample. That night, the doc calls for help because he's looking just about as good as that wild boar did. Sometime later at the Cumberland State Correctional Facility, and a random prisoner is given a package from one of the guards. Apparently you can just send nasty pig legs to prisoners in the mail. Even worse, it looks like it's been infected with whatever the hell killed the doctor.
When was he exposed?
In just 18 hours, whatever he's been exposed to has already incubated and is ready to infect others. Even these specialists that have been brought in seem to be surprised by just how quickly it has grown.
Oxygen saturation, 81%.
You sure about that? Because to me it looks like the oxygen saturation is 98% and his pulse rate is 81. But what do I know? I ain't got no fancy book learning. While Bobby is being tended to, a few other prisoners are tasked with cleaning his room, while the guard acts very suspicious, almost like he knows what's going on. The entire cell block has been cleared out because it appears as though everyone has gotten ill from something. But we'll just skip over the logistics of how an entire cell block got sick from something you need to be in direct contact with.
I don't know, the sheets ain't going to the laundry. Guy says they're going to some kind of incinerator.
But the laundry pickup's still happening.
Mulder and Scully are brought on the scene after the prisoners make their escape with the laundry pickup. But this doesn't seem like an X-File to me. Mulder notices men in biohazard equipment, but that's not why they've been called in. Instead, they were brought in to help in a manhunt with U.S. Marshal Tapia. But like always, anytime Mulder and Scully meet any kind of law enforcement, they're always so dismissive of the agents.
I'm in charge here.
Apparently not, or you'd know why our involvement was requested.
The prison has been taken over by the National Guard, and no one seems to know why. But Marshal Tapia doesn't care why, he just wants to find those escaped convicts. Mulder asks Scully to try and find out what's happening at the prison, while he decides to be a pain in the ass with the marshal. A family pulls up at a rest stop, and they're clearly in Virginia and not Vancouver. The two inmates snatch up their RV, but I don't know why their one daughter is smirking. Does she not realize they're now stranded?
I'm sorry, this is a restricted area.
Who are you?
Dr. Osborne.
Scully starts questioning one of the men at the prison, a Dr. Osborne, and learns he doesn't even work for the prison. No, he's part of the CDC. Oh yeah, those guys can be trusted. He tries to turn his back on Scully, but nobody turns their back on my girl because Scully tells someone she's a medical doctor.
Sir? I'm a medical doctor. I want to know what's going on here.
Scully is all ready to spill the beans on their secret little quarantine, and the doctor tells her 14 men have been infected, with 10 already dead. The big worry now is the men that have escaped could also be infected. Scully calls Mulder to tell him what she's discovered, and that the men on the loose may be carrying it as well.
Well, then I want to see charts, and I want access to the infirmary.
You see what I let you see.
Pissing Scully off is never the smartest move. While the convicts fill up the RV, one of the men, Paul, calls his girlfriend to tell her he's broken out and will be seeing her very soon. The attendant notices the men are taking a really long time filling up the RV, and he decides to see what's going on. When he enters the bathroom, he finds one of the men, and he's clearly infected. Well, there goes the show's production assistant. I love how even though the CDC apparently has this place locked down, Scully can still just wander around alone. And because she's a scientist and incredibly smart, she cuts open the plastic that's holding all the infected bodies.
What are these?
Please, these bodies should not be exposed.
Do all of the victims have these boils? You're burning the bodies. Why?
Look, even before he got sprayed in the face, he was already trying to close the bag without gloves, so none of these people are really all that intelligent. Did someone paint over the K on this speed sign? Mulder and the US Marshals arrive at the gas station, but it looks as though the men have made their escape.
Either of these guys got a girlfriend, you know?
I wish I could tell you, but those records are locked up in the prison.
Well, if they had girlfriends, they probably tried to call them. Did you think of that?
My favorite part of this show is how Mulder and Scully make all other law enforcement look like complete and utter buffoons. While Mulder is getting the last number dialed from the phone, the CDC arrives so they can cover up whatever is going on. The two prisoners make it back to Paul's place, and his girlfriend or wife is so happy to see him she barely has any time to notice the rotting man in the front seat.
What's wrong with him?
You know, you should always make sure you touch clearly infected people, and you should bring them inside to hang out with your child. Scully contacts US Postal to find out where that package came from and learns it originated from Pink Pharmaceutical Company, so she calls Mulder to tell him what she discovered.
Oh, hey, Scully. Now, listen, I'm going to take the rest of the day off, and why don't you just try to solve this worldwide contagion on your own? Hey, listen, while you're at it, can you talk dirty to me right now?
Mulder tells Scully he needs to know more about this contagion, how it's transmitted, so they'll know what to do with the escaped men. Scully notices something moving in one of the bodies and finds some insect, which is really just a stink bug, but her mask must be magic because it goes from being around her neck to on her face when at no point did she put it on.
I'm burning up here. Please.
How did the previous episode get an 18 rating in the UK, but not this one? Paul's girl Elizabeth gets a face and mouthful of this stuff, and when she wipes it off her face, she throws a towel at the poor cameraman. The US Marshals suddenly burst in the house, and they're all infected now, right? I mean, she didn't exactly do a great job of cleaning that stuff. You know, this woman keeps putting herself in these predicaments because she really just has the worst taste in men.
Care for lights?
The doc is infected because, duh, he was sprayed in the face, but it's not the CDC that's got everything on lockdown, it's the company, Pink Pharmaceuticals. So this whole thing happened because a pharmaceutical company wanted to mess around with unknown bugs and found one that just so happens to carry a disgusting parasite that attacks the immune system and then explodes from pustules as part of its reproductive life cycle.
Everybody getting this so far?
The doctor is now claiming that Scully may also be infected because she was there when he got sprayed, but if that were the case, she would be showing signs of infection as well. Also, why are they doing nothing to prevent the doctor's pustules from erupting, and instead he keeps pulling his shirt down to show her?
What is it, Agent Mulder?
This case we've been assigned, I believe we've been misled.
What is the accusation, Agent Mulder?
Oh great, it's this son of a bitch. It looks like CSM may have been the one to put the agents up to this task, but for what purpose I don't know. He seems to already know everything that was going to happen, so why did he need them?
Pink Pharmaceutical is here trying to clean it up quietly. And the government would have to know about it. They're protecting Pink Pharmaceutical.
What? The government help a pharmaceutical company cover up a contagion they released? Oh god, this show is so implausible at times. Mulder wants proof of the cover-up so they can expose it to the media, but Scully is hesitant until they know more because she doesn't want to create a panic.
My name is Fox Mulder, I'm with the FBI. Where did Paul go, Elizabeth?
Mulder meets with Elizabeth because he wants to know where Paul is. He tells her he's sick and could infect a lot of people, But Elizabeth bites back saying if that were true, then why isn't it on the news? Why aren't they warning people about this? She ends up spilling the beans and tells Mulder he's going to be taking a bus headed to Toronto. Oh hell no, don't be bringing that shit here. You know, on second thought, Toronto is the garbage dump of Canada. Meanwhile, Scully and the doctor are conducting a test to see if she's infected. Although I think it's pretty obvious that she isn't. When the doctor falls down because the infection, as he puts it, is moving into his brain. But Scully, who knows how this whole thing spreads, is mere inches away from his pustules on his neck.
Don't believe for a second this is an isolated incident.
The doc tells her that if she isn't infected and somehow manages to survive, that she needs to get the word out, otherwise the company will just keep doing this over and over again. Of course, Scully isn't infected, but when she goes back to check on the doctor, well, he's long gone.
Where's Dr. Osborne?
Well, he was actually taken out to get torched, and one of the men from the company tells Scully that no one will believe her story. Mulder and the US Marshals arrive at the bus station when Scully calls him to let him know that all the evidence there has been incinerated.
That prisoner is the last man who could possibly connect the conspirators.
He's infected. He's gonna die.
If you want the truth, Mulder, he's gonna have to make a statement.
The only way to expose the company now at this point is with the prisoner's own testimony. That's if he can live long enough to tell it. US Marshals surround all the buses as passengers get off, but what the hell is this guy doing? Mulder suggests that he go on the bus alone because if the prisoner sees anyone in a uniform, it may become deadly.
That's him. Right back there.
Well, it becomes deadly anyways because the damn bus driver doesn't know how to point someone out without alerting them. So now we've got a hostage situation, and that thing on his face, well, it's looking pretty nasty.
I'm dying, Ava.
The question is, how many people are you gonna take with you?
Mulder manages to get everyone off the bus, while Paul deals with the fact that he's pretty much a dead man, and this whole thing started because of the package that was sent to the prison. He does let the kid go, and Mulder desperately gets him to talk so they can expose what the company did.
Tell me!
Well, the US Marshals become impatient and decide to end things then and there before he can talk. You know, it was probably the guy scooting on the ground that fired the shot. Mulder's about to go public with what he knows, despite Skinner trying to convince him not to.
His name was Robert Torrance, the same as our prisoner. It was their failsafe in case it ever came to this, so they could blame it on a simple postal error. A mistake.
So no matter what they did, they were going to be discredited with nothing more than a simple postal error. That the package simply just went to the wrong person.
I'm saying this as a friend. Watch your back. This is just the beginning.
F Emasculata is an interesting episode because it opens up the fact that the conspiracies are more than just aliens and UFOs. And really, with everything that's going on and how actual pharmaceutical companies behave, this is probably a lot tamer than what actually goes on in the real world. We just never hear about it. I feel like a lot more people should have been infected. I mean, just look at Elizabeth after she got sprayed. She was immediately taken into custody by the US Marshals, but it's not like she had been scrubbed down and sanitized prior to them apprehending her. Also, the shift in focus from the episode being about a contagion, and then in like the last 10 minutes, it seems to switch to an episode about disinformation, seems like two different scripts that got Frankenstein together and don't exactly work. I mean, they could work. I just think that maybe they needed a little bit more time in the writing room. The episode currently has an 8 on IMDb, which is solid. I would probably go closer to a 7. It's good, but it has some issues. F Emasculata was written by Chris Carter and Howard Gordon and was based on the concept of pharmaceutical companies sending out researchers to find new animals and plants for medicinal use, which is something that they actually do. The film Outbreak, which is about an outbreak of a virus in a California town, opened about a month and a half prior to this episode's debut, so producers were worried that they may be overshadowed. They considered moving the episode for a later release, but then decided that both projects were different enough that they shouldn't have any effect on one another. I think this is the better story anyways, so just stick to this one. Interestingly, Cigarette Smoking Man makes an appearance in what is really a Monster of the Week story. Chris Carter never really liked mixing the Monster of the Week stories with the main overarching plotline, though it does happen every now and then, like when X was introduced in The Host. The effects work in this episode is stomach churning. Makeup effects supervisor Toby Lindala created the pustules so they would explode when needed. They would hide some tubing under makeup and appliances, and when needed, it would cause the pustules to erupt. Shooting these scenes was kind of a pain in the ass though, with Lindala remarking, "In one scene, I was jammed underneath one of the bus seats with these extras basically stepping on my head." Frank Spotnitz also said about the disgusting effect, "When we saw the pustule bursting on film, we just laughed because it was just so over-the-top grotesque." At one point, producer R.W. Goodwin remembered director Rob Bowman say to Lindala, "I need the pus to go from left to right." The beginning of the episode, which is supposed to take place in Costa Rica, was actually the Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve in North Vancouver. This area also doubled as Puerto Rico for the season 2 opener, Little Green Men. Dr. Osborne was played by Charles Martin Smith. He's an American-born actor and director, with his most notable role most likely being Terry the Toad Fields in the film American Graffiti and its sequel, More American Graffiti. He also has some directing credits like the original Air Bud and the very cheesy but very fun 1986 horror film Trick or Treat. Dean Norris played the role of Marshall Tapia. Now he has an interesting connection to the X-Files outside of this episode because his most well-known role is easily DEA agent Hank Schrader in one of the most popular shows ever, Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was created by producer and writer for the X-Files Vince Gilligan, and even more interesting is Vince Gilligan gets his big break on the X-Files when he writes his very first episode, Soft Light, which is literally the very next episode. These two just missed one another, but would end up working together a little over a decade later. John Piper Ferguson played the role of escaped prisoner Paul. He's an Australian-born actor and has had a lot of smaller roles throughout his career. Some of his more notable roles were Jack Soloff in Suits and Bill Cadigan on The 100. From 1993 to 1994, he also had a recurring role on The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., a show that Fox was also showing during the first season of The X-Files. But because of budget restraints, the heads at Fox basically had to toss a coin to decide on which show would stay and which show would go. And unfortunately for Briscoe County Jr., The X-Files won out and was renewed for a second season.
You found me beautiful once.
Honey, you got real ugly.
F Emasculata is a decent episode that definitely has some holes if you start to look a little closer, but overall it's decent enough. Next up is Vince Gilligan's first credit for the series with the episode Soft Light. I hope you enjoyed today's video and let me know down in the comments what you think of F Emasculata. I hope you're having a great day, and as always, stay spooky.
Two escaped convicts unleash a deadly virus.
It kills within 36 hours.
And Agent Scully is the next victim.
You may also be infected.
We can't let this be known. The panic is going to spread faster than the contagion.
Now, no one is safe.
Put it down!
On The X-Files, Friday.